Hello and welcome to my tutorial on how to use the PV3 Rental Manager spreadsheet. It's very similar to my Business Manager, but I've edited it and changed it so that it works with rental properties. You'll notice that it's an Excel spreadsheet, so it has multiple worksheets. It has a settings sheet, an income worksheet, an expense worksheet, and an income statement report sheet. We're going to start in the settings sheet. If you're using the Rental Manager for the first time, you're going to want to put in the date of the year that you're working in. Now currently it's 2020, and if I had a client working in 2019, they would put in the date. How dates work in Excel is you want to follow the same format. Look at the bottom right corner of your screen, the same format as you would use as set up in Windows. Now currently my computer is set to month, day, and year. Your computer might be different. Mine is set up to month, day, year. Most computers are actually set to, I believe, day, month, year, but I prefer the month, day, year. So if I was typing in the date, I would go 1-1-19. So that's month, day, year, and that will put in the date. Then you put in your name. So we'll say Randy's Rental Property. By putting in the title in the business name, it'll change the titles on all the worksheets. You can see it changed the income worksheet, changes the expense worksheet, and it changes your rental income statement at report and heading. Okay, next we have our rental income categories. Generally you're just going to have rental income, but if you have a multi-unit plex, it's a good idea to sometimes to separate the units into different income categories. So let's call this first one unit number 1, then unit number 2. Let's say you have 3 units, unit number 3. And the other, if you had 6 units, you could do up to 6 units. This is where you want to put your revenue when you're setting it up for the first time. If you want to track any unrelated revenue, then you can use these boxes here. They're amounts that would come in, but they have nothing to do with the rental. I'm not sure why you'd want to use it for a rental, but if you have any purposes for rental or other income that's not rent related, you could put it in here. Next section is your general expense categories. These are the most common expenses for a rental unit. You'd have your heat and hydro. You have your property insurance, any maintenance and repairs done to the building that don't increase the value of the capital property. So if you put a roof on, or you increase the building in a significant way, it's not really maintenance and repairs. It's something different, which I'll show you later. Mortgage interest, not mortgage payments, be careful with that. Property taxes, and so on and so forth. If you need any other categories, you can put them in these white boxes below. It's rare, but sometimes rental owners need to use their vehicle for the rental purpose. There are special rules on it, so be really careful if you're going to be tracking your vehicle expenses for your rental property. If you want to have a specific vehicle, you'd put it in here. So I used to have a Ford Fusion. I really liked my Ford Fusion. So imagine you had a Ford Fusion. You change your name of your vehicle in this box here, and it'll change your title headings. If you need to add another category that's not in this list, add it to this white box here. There's also a section for a second vehicle. If you take money out of your rental property from your profits, you would use drawings. And if you buy any assets that have significant value, you'd want to put them in the asset category. You don't put them up in the expense category. You use these categories here. So if you bought a building, the building would be a Class 1 asset. If you bought any furniture or appliances, they're going to be a Class 8 asset, like a stove or a fridge or something like that. It's going to be a Class 8. Vehicles are rare for a rental property, and so are computer equipment. It's very rare as well. But if you happen to, in your circumstance, need to purchase one of these items, these are the asset classes you would use. And if you bought any land for the rental property, you'd have a land category. If there's any other areas, things you want to track, if you want to use the spreadsheet for tracking something else, you would use this box here. And payment methods, I would generally not use this for the rental property. Excuse me. Now that we have gone through the settings sheet, let's go to the income worksheet. Income worksheet is where where a lot of the work is done for money coming in. As you notice, there's a section for every month of the year, and that's where you would put in your information. So let's say now you may or may not use invoice numbers or dates, but if you had rental for the first of the month, we would put in the date. We would again follow the format, day, month, and year. As far as my computer is concerned, again, yours might be different. We'll hit tab, invoice number. I'm just going to ignore it's a rental property. You could put the first in. If you have a receipt book, that's a good idea, and use the invoice numbers, but that's up to you. Customer, so you'd say, let's say John lives in unit 1, so let's say John, and income category. This is the part you need to remember, that this is the most important part when using this spreadsheet. If you forget everything else, don't forget this. You need to use the drop down box. See the unit 1, 2, and 3, those categories that we added in our settings sheet, now flow through to this spreadsheet. You do not want to type, you do not want to type manually in this box, as it will not work properly. It will not pick up whatever you type in. It only picks up what shows up in the drop-down box. Now, that being said, if you were to perfectly type in unit number 1, that would also be okay, but it has to be something within this drop-down list. That's very, very important. Otherwise, the spreadsheet will not work properly. Can't stress that enough. If you want to track what bank accounts you're putting money into, you can use that feature. And again, that's in the settings sheet. Down at the bottom, your payment methods. That's where that is attached to. And finally, you would put in the rental amount. So let's say the first rental unit is $850 a month. That's where you'd put it. Let's say on the same day, there is invoice 2. Let's say Sally, she's in unit 2. Or let's say unit 2 is unoccupied and she put in money in she's a renter for unit 3, and let's say unit 3 is $750. That shows how to use income. And you would go through every month. Now you'll notice that some of the months have more spots available than others. So you might ask yourself, well, how do I add new rows? There's this button up here called Add New Row button. How it works is you want to click anywhere in the yellow section and hit the Add New Row button. And as soon as you click that, you'll see that it'll add new rows to your spreadsheet. And you can do that wherever you want. Be really careful. If you click anywhere else and then hit the Add New Row button, you can make the spreadsheet look really ugly and you can make some mistakes. So it's be very careful about staying in the yellow area and not using up all your slots before you need to add new rows. So be careful about that. In this case, I've already have my macros enabled. This box uses what's called a macro. It's kind of like a mini little program in the back of Excel. And there's going to be a yellow bar that pops up when you open the spreadsheet, and it's going to say Enable Macros. If you do not enable macros, this button will not work. If you need help with that, you can contact me directly and I can walk you through the process of having this button to work. Okay, let's move ahead to the expense worksheet. It's very similar to the income sheet, but it's just on the expense side of things. So again, let's say on the 5th of January, you went to Staples to buy some office supplies for the rental, so you can record information, or let's say, I don't know, let's say you went and bought Excel so you could use this spreadsheet. And if you use a check number, you can put that, but if not, that's okay. Payment method, let's say you use the business account or rental account. And again, this is the most important part, expense category. Do not forget to use expense categories that are in the box, and you can scroll down. In this case, let's go office supplies, and spent $56.50 on office supplies. And let's say on January the 10th of 2019, the city of, I live in town of Air, city of Air, and it was property tax, even though it would actually be township of North Dumfries. And let's say there's a property tax payment. I don't know, let's say it's $500 whatever the property tax payment is, you would put the category in there. And again, you would just work your way through the months, and you would input your data, and you would work through the expense worksheet. Finally, let's go to our reports. So our income statement sheet right here, this will show us our reports. As you can see, the information we put in now flows through to the spreadsheet. So you can see, now one thing I should have unhid these, sometimes I don't always show all the units. So what I did is you can hide. So what I do is select and click and drag, and I can right click and I can unhide, and that gave me the information. Or I can hide. Let's say I'm not going to use these 3 categories. So I click on row 9, hold the button, let go till 11, then I right click and I go hide. And I don't need to see all that extra stuff. Same as all this extra here. Why don't we do that? We'll select and hold and then hide. There, now we have our rental statement. that shows the total, but I can also show, if I unhide the columns at the top, it shows me every month. So I can see every month, I can see how my rental property is doing, and I'll see my bottom line. And if I'm tracking my vehicle expenses or my drawings, how much I've taken out from the rental property, or any assets that I purchased, it will all show up on this spreadsheet. It's very helpful for us when we do our tax returns. If everything is neat and tidy in this spreadsheet, it makes our job a lot easier, and it saves on your bill, because we won't have to add up your totals for you. If you do it yourself, you can save yourself a lot of money. So I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial on the PV3 Rental Manager, and I hope you use it, and I hope it helps you long term. Thank you.